So here's a question for you. How does a high school dropout, a kid who literally got kicked out of community college for bad grades, end up becoming a decorated U.S. Army soldier and then go on to earn a Ph.D.? It sounds impossible, right? But it's a true story, and it's all about grit, discipline, and just refusing to quit. Okay, let's get into this incredible journey.
In this quote right here from Dr. Rony Rodas himself, it just nails it. This is the whole story in a nutshell. He calls his journey the quiet battle, which is such a powerful idea. It reminds you that the toughest wars we fight aren't always on some foreign battlefield. A lot of the time, they're right inside our own heads, against our past, our doubts, and the hand we were dealt.
And his story doesn't start in some far-off war zone. No, it starts on the streets of Far Rockaway, Queens. And for a young Rony Rodas, that was the battlefield. It was a place where just getting through the day was the mission. And big dreams? Well, they felt like a luxury he couldn't afford.
I mean, look at this list. The obstacles he was up against were just staggering. This wasn't one bad break. It was a constant storm. He dropped out of high school not once, but twice because it was just too dangerous. A house fire literally left his family homeless, pushing them onto welfare in Section 8. And when he tried to use school to get out, he was academically dismissed. For so many people, that would have been game over. For him, it was just the beginning.
But you know, in the middle of all that chaos, his father gave him this one crucial piece of advice. He'd see other kids just hanging out on the street corners, going nowhere, and he'd tell his son, "Don't be one of the bunch." It was more than just advice. It was a command. Break the cycle. Work harder. Fight for the future I never got. And that became his personal marching order.
Okay, so with his dad's words pushing him, he decided the military was his way out. But his very first battle was a test, the military entrance exam. And he failed it. And then he failed it again, and for a third time, he failed. I mean, can you imagine? Each failure just felt like proof that he wasn't smart enough. But here's the thing. He didn't see it as a final judgment. He saw it as a challenge. He hit the books like never before, and finally, he passed. That wasn't just about a test. That was the first time he proved to himself that sheer persistence could actually change his story.
So after winning that first fight, he was in. He joined the U.S. Army. And this wasn't just a career change. It completely rewired his entire being. The Army gave him the structure he'd been searching for his whole life, and discipline. Well, discipline became the teacher that changed absolutely everything.
And his time in the Army sent him all over the world, with each deployment teaching him something new. In '98, it was South Korea, learning about constant readiness and the discipline of being isolated. Then, in 2000, he was in Kosovo with NATO forces, where it was all about navigating the psychological tension of a post-war zone. By 2004, he was in Iraq with the 10th Mountain Division, facing the raw, unfiltered reality of survival. And after all that, he went to recruiter school, where his whole mission flipped from combat to mentoring others.
So get this, he shows up to basic training with a few college credits, thinking he's got a leg up on everyone else. He had a bit of a chip on his shoulder. Well, that ego got crushed on day one. His drill sergeant said this to him, and it drove home a huge lesson. Your past doesn't mean a thing here. Respect isn't given, it's earned, with sweat, with action, with humility. The military had to break him down completely to rebuild him into someone stronger.
But man, this dedication, it came at a huge personal cost. After a brutal tour in Iraq, he landed back home. The hangar was full of families, all these emotional reunions happening everywhere. But as he stood there and watched, he realized something crushing. There was no one there for him. And in that incredibly lonely moment, he made a decision. The Army, that would be his family. The mission, that would be his purpose. And that powerful sense of commitment started to evolve. He decided it was time to launch a new kind of campaign. Not in some foreign country, but in the classroom. This was his chance to go back and conquer those academic failures that had always been in the back of his mind. And he was going to use the very same discipline the Army had beaten into.
This is where everything starts to change. Picture this. He's at Fort Hood, Texas, and he walks into the education center on base. He's holding a folder just stuffed with random transcripts from different colleges, different states, a paper trail of all his failed attempts at a degree. He puts it all down on the counselor's desk and asks this one simple question.
And the answer he got back was just mind-blowing. 62. The counselor looked through everything, his old college tries, his military training, his leadership courses, and told him he'd already earned 62 college credits. 62! He was floored.
Can you even imagine? After all those years of feeling like a failure in school, he finds out he's literally on the goal line. He was just 2 classes away from a degree. All that struggle, all those setbacks, it wasn't for nothing. Redemption wasn't just some far-off idea. It was right there, waiting for him.
So what do you think he did? He jumped on it right away. While he was still on active duty, he knocked out those last 2 classes and earned his Associate of Science. But he didn't stop. That momentum was everything. He kept going, and by the time he left the military, he'd finished his bachelor's degree, something he truly believed was impossible for someone like him.
So, with a bachelor's degree in hand and his military career winding down, he set his sights on the final, most insane mission yet, getting a doctorate. This was going to be the ultimate test of every single ounce of endurance and discipline he had.
And let me tell you, this was not a sprint. This was an absolute marathon. 9 years. For 9 grueling years, he balanced a full-time job with the insane demands of a Ph.D. program. He treated it just like a military operation, a mission that needed to be worked on day in and day out with no excuses.
And you'd think by now he was done with failure, right? Nope. Even at this super high level, he hit a wall. He failed his comprehensive exams. That's a huge setback in a Ph.D. program, and it meant he had to stop and wait a whole year just to try again. But remember the military entrance exam? He did the same thing he did back then. He didn't quit. He used the time to regroup, study harder, and come back stronger. And he passed, proving once again that resilience was his true superpower.
And then finally, after 9 long years, the march was over. Dr. Rony A. Rodas had done it. He had won his quiet battle. The 2 parts of his life that made him who he was, the soldier and the scholar, they weren't separate anymore. They had merged, creating a whole new person with a whole new mission.
So what does he mean by the quiet battle? What is that really? It's the idea that defines his entire life. It's that internal war that, honestly, we all fight. It's the struggle against where we come from, against the voice in our head that says we can't do it, and against all the barriers the world puts up. And it's a battle you don't win with one big heroic moment. You win it with the small, quiet, daily choice to just keep going.
And it's cool when you look at it this way, you can see how these 2 battlefields were actually kind of the same. The military uniform was replaced by academic regalia. The drill sergeant yelling at him to be disciplined was replaced by a dissertation advisor demanding intellectual discipline. The military mission simply evolved into a deeper life's purpose. He just took the lessons from one battlefield and used them to conquer the next.
And that right there is really the heart of this entire story. It's the biggest takeaway. Discipline will carry you farther than talent ever will. It's just such a powerful reminder for all of us that it doesn't matter where you start. What matters is the discipline to keep going. With that, any battle, quiet or loud, can absolutely be won.